folks, Scott here with my 10 cards, 1 kit video featuring the Love From Lizi May 2020 card kit. As usual, I do take the 5 card stocks provided in our kit and make my card bases from them. Lizi is calling this the Happy Bluebird kit, although I think online it's referred to as the Lucky Bluebird. But happy or lucky, it's all filled with all sorts of great spring colors, butterflies, and of course, plenty of pink. Now we got 2 sheets of decoupage in this kit, 2 little mini decoupage sheets. I love Lizi's decoupage sheets, so I thought I would tackle one of those to begin with this month. On the raspberry pink card base, we've got On Your Special Day, that great decoupage piece right in the center. I used all 6 layers of that decoupage piece for this card. I love it so much. Great texture and dimension to that little bouquet there. And on the inside, of course, we've got Happy Birthday. This is from one of the die-cut sentiment pieces from our kit. Happy birthday on the inside. I took our raspberry pink card base and I stenciled this music on the back of that. This is a TCW stencil. This is called the Mini Sheet Music stencil. And I stenciled that on my card front using some Hero Arts white unicorn ink and a blender brush. That gave me a nice background on this card. I was a little worried that this small-ish decoupage piece would get a little lost on a card front. So I traced the hexagon that is on the bottom piece of that decoupage set, and I traced that out and then cut another matte size layer from that and cut that out of some pewter colored mirror cardstock, some really nice pewter colored mirror cardstock. Put that on a little black mat and then built up my decoupage bouquet on top of that. I really like that. I used my tiny little foam squares to build that all together. I still felt it was a little wanting on the front of this card, so I grabbed some of the nesting hexagon dies that we got in Lizi's March 18 kit, March of 2018, and I cut 2 of the small hexagons and 4 of the medium-sized hexagons out of that same pewter mirror cardstock, matted those on black, glued those to the card front. That fills out this card very nicely. A really nice birthday card on your special day. Happy birthday. There's some pink for you right off the bat. And I love those decoupage pieces. Just look at all that dimension. All 6 layers. This kit is filled with all sorts of pattern papers and cut-aparts and ephemera pieces and die-cut sheets. There was one cut-apart from our pattern paper that really caught my eye. This is on the navy card base, and we've got, especially for you, a thank you card. I fell in love with these 2 roses on this. This was one of our pattern papers, had 3 by 3 inch cut-aparts on it. I fell in love with these roses. I thought they were gorgeous. So I cut that panel away from that pattern paper and I matted that on some of the dark blue striped pattern paper that's in the center of one of those flower frame pattern papers. That's from the center. I used that same blue pattern paper to put a mat behind this little thank you banner on the bottom here. I die cut this pattern paper with a lawn fawn stitched rectangle die, mounted that on a thin pink mat, glued those down to our navy card base. I mounted our matted panel up with some foam tape. I stamped this sentiment from our stamp set on a matching piece of pink pattern paper, and I embossed that with the Love From Lizi Warm Navy embossing powder. Really like that nice dark blue color. It matches the card base perfectly. Especially for you, I added that little banner with some foam tape and the thank you banner with more foam tape. Just a writing surface on the inside. That's our big pattern paper card using one of our sentiments from our stamp set. I think those roses are absolutely lovely. Okay, so I used the center part of one of those flower frame pattern papers for this. I figured I should use the flowers on that too. So for our next card, we're again on a navy card base, and we have a Happy Mother's Day card. Oh, I love this. Oh, this all goes so well together. I fussy cut the flowers from the edge of that frame and then snipped them on all four sides and shrunk them up together to make a smaller frame that would fit an A2 card. Now you can tell if you look closely, there's an overlap right there, there's an overlap right there, we overlap here and overlap right here to make our frame small enough to fit our card. I glued those all together and matted those to a thin white mat. Of course, I cut the center of that white mat out so you would see the card base below that. I stamped this sentiment on the center using Versamark ink and embossed that with some white embossing powder. This is a stamp set, an old paper pumpkin stamp set. I really like this Happy Mother's Day. I think it's my favorite Mother's Day sentiment stamp that I have in my stash. I thought the little flowers in that stamp went perfectly with this little layout. I then glued, of course, my flower frame down. I glued it down on the edges and added some foam tape along the center opening to give a little dimension to those flowers. Then I took that great little bitty butterfly die and cut a couple of butterflies from the leftover pattern paper, just the scraps that I cut away to cut this frame down. And see right here, there's one of those butterflies cut out from one of those yellow ones. I think that's this one right here. I used my Pigma Micron pen to draw little bodies in the center of them. I folded their wings up, glued them down to the cardstock, and used a white gel pen to give them little antennae there. I am not a huge fan of butterflies. I think they get overused a little bit, but that little tiny butterfly die is so adorable, and I love this card. On the inside, I did stamp another sentiment. You are amazing. This is from the Altenew penned rose stamp set. You are amazing right there. I ran across this while I was looking for my Mother's Day sentiment stamp, and I thought it would go perfectly on the inside of this card. I think my mom is pretty amazing. This is going to be her Mother's Day card this year. Happy Mother's Day! Unlike some of Lizzie's kits where we get a ton of ephemera pieces, we only had 5 ephemera pieces in this pack, but I fell in love with one of those ephemera pieces. So for my next card, this is on the mint card base. We've got Thinking of You with Love, with that beautiful butterfly ephemera piece. Oh, that is so nice. I can enjoy my butterflies, especially when they're intricately colored like this. So using my craft knife, I cut the wings of the butterfly away from its circular background. I did not cut the body, left the body on there completely all on its own. So I got some great dimensions when I folded those wings up. I then took my circle dies and made a little black frame for that. I cut this matching polka dot pattern paper to 3 inches wide by 5 1/4 inches tall. I matted that with some thin black mat on the 2 sides and glued that down to my card base. I then took a couple of 1/2-inch strips of that butterfly pattern paper and cut those to 5 1/4 inches, glued those along the sides as well. I did wrap some of that butterfly ribbon around the bottom of this, added a little bow, and I took that little mini butterfly die and used that to cut these butterflies, which match the big butterflies. There are butterflies on this pattern paper that are almost the exact same size as our butterfly die. So you can see here, right here, that's one of those butterflies cut from that pattern paper. It almost matches that die perfectly. When I found that out, I was really tickled to use these butterflies because all of the butterflies match each other. Again, I gave them little black bodies down the center, folded their wings up, glued those down to this card front, and added some little antenna using my Pigma Micron pen. I stamped this sentiment. This is from the stamp set. I did some stamp surgery and separated the words from each other and gave them a little curve on the top of this ephemera piece. Thinking of You, that is embossed with a Love From Lizi Golden Crown embossing powder. The butterfly ephemera piece and the frame are glued to the card front, little foam tape under the wings so they keep their dimension. Thinking of You with love, a really pretty card. Just a writing surface on the inside. Okay, I happen to think that butterfly's really pretty amazing. And the fact that all of these butterflies are all colored the same tickles me to no end. Now, our specialty paper in this kit was some handmade paper that had some petals, some flower petals embedded in the fiber of the paper. I was really looking forward to working with that paper, but I wasn't quite sure how to use it on a card. So this is what I came up with. This is on one of the white card bases. We've got special hugs for you. That is all painted with that Green Parade Nouveau Shimmer powder. Now, I did use that shimmer powder to paint a whole piece of cardstock. Actually, I used watercolor paper. Just spritz that paper with some water, sprinkle in your Nouveau shimmer powder, let it soak in. I really don't fiddle around with it, kind of sprinkle and spritz and sprinkle and spritz, and this is what I came up with. I wasn't quite sure what to do with that, so I set it aside to dry and attacked this card. Now, this pattern paper made me think of watercolor paper. It is handmade paper, so I figured it would probably take water fairly well. So I did a little test down in the corner of one of the pieces of paper, and it seemed to have no problem with water. So I grabbed that Green Parade shimmer powder and I painted the hugs on the front of this card. Now, I didn't think I could send this paper through my printer. I was worried it would get torn up in there. So I turned to my Silhouette software and I printed up this pattern. Hugs in the middle of 4 1/4 by 5 1/2. This is the Gothic 821 condensed BT font. All of these fonts will be linked on my website at cardcutups.com. I printed this out on just a piece of paper. I placed the handmade paper over the top, put it on a light board, and was able to paint this using that as a background pattern. Nice little ombre effect there where the green is darker at the bottom, a little lighter at the top. You got some nice shimmer going on. Of course, the darker the color gets, the more shimmer you get, but I really like that. I took the special die from our die set and cut that out of my watercolored shimmer powder paper and then stacked that up on 3 more white die cuts, glued those all together for a nice chunky sentiment, glued that to the top of our card here. For You is one of the sentiments in our stamp set. I've never been a very big fan of For You sentiments, but I was really pleased with how nicely it worked filling out this sentiment. Special hugs for you. I stamped that on the front of this card under the G there using some Stampin' Up! Mint Macaron ink. I thought that was almost a perfect match for all of the green on this card. Now, I did have some petals falling off of my handmade paper, so I took a couple of those petals and glued those to the front of that, just with some liquid glue, added a little bit more color to the front of this card. This is shiny and sparkly. I guess I should say shimmery. Special hugs for you. I really like that. I love that great big hugs. Now, in our pattern papers, we had 2 pattern papers that had large bouquets of flowers on them. I really liked the darker toned one. So that's on this next card. On the mint card base, we've got another Mother's Day card. Mom. This feels very Victorian to me. I'm not quite sure why. I took that darker bouquet and I fussy cut all of the greenery away from it and split it right down the middle so I could open it up a little bit on the front of this card. These are the little filigree cornice pieces, our dies in our set. I cut 4 of those out of my Green Parade watercolor paper and glued those in the 4 corners. I did do a little bit of ink distressing around the edges using some cracked pistachio distress oxide ink. Just a little bit of a touch so it wasn't totally flat in the back. I glued those 4 filigree pieces in the 4 corners. I spread the bouquet out behind this strip of that Green Parade watercolor paper. There's about a 1/2 inch opening behind that piece. I glued those all down to the card front with a couple of brads on the side and my mom sentiment here. Now, I die cut the mom from some pink mirror cardstock in my stash, and these are actually cut with an alpha die that I got in the Love From Lizi Special Edition Oh Baby kit back in 2017, 2018, long time ago, but this is a really nice alpha die set. I don't think Lizi carries it anymore. Worked perfectly for this sentiment. I die cut one from the mirror cardstock, and I die cut two more layers in black cardstock, glued those all together for just a little bit of a chunky sentiment, glued everything down to our card front, and then attached two pieces of our mint moonstone peel-offs. These are the straight peel-offs. These are in the kit. Attach those to the top and bottom. Another lovely mom card. I really like this. This is my study in pink and green. Nothing on the inside. Happy Mother's Day. I did forget to mention that I used some of those mint moonstone peel-offs, some of the pinstripe peel-offs on the edges here between our center panel and our pattern paper on the sides. It adds a really nice touch of sparkle to this card while being very, very subtle. And of course, it matches the straight peel-offs perfectly. Now, if you've been watching me at all, you know I generally like to try and use all of the stamps in a stamp set in my 10 card videos. I haven't yet gotten to any of the bird stamps in this stamp set. So let's try working with those. This is on a light pink card base. I'll explain in a minute. And we've got another magic iris card. Oh my goodness, this is my third magic iris card in a row, but I'm so thrilled with how this came out. You know, I've been trying to match the background in our moving pieces to the background here. I think I came up with a different solution here. Missing you. I am very pleased with this. Of course, those little moving pieces are all stamped with this portion of that stamp. I stamped this wreath stamp on a piece of Bristol Smooth cardstock using some VersaFine Onyx Black ink, and was a little surprised. There's a lot of detail on these birds, so there's a lot of black. This bird has like a completely black wing, so I didn't think I could color them as bluebirds, so I colored them as orioles instead. Orange and black orioles. I think that orange pops very nicely in and amongst all of that green. Now my moving pieces here, my little sausage pieces, I stamped with this portion of the stamp in the same black, colored this all with my Zig Clean Color markers and assembled it. I do have a YouTube assembly video showing how to put together these magic iris cards. I'm very pleased with this. The background is cut from that other flower frame pattern paper. Of course, I fussy cut our stamped piece out, leaving a little border around the edges, and then fussy cut right against the stamp lines on the inside. I think that center filled with leaves works perfectly. Missing You is stamped on the center piece of that pattern paper, so there's some pattern matching there for you, the little stripes in the background. I stamped and embossed that using VersaFine Onyx Black ink and some clear embossing powder, so there's a little bit of shine on that. I did add some sequins from our sequin mix for a little bit more sparkle. Nothing on the inside of this card, a simple Missing You magic iris card. I'm so pleased with how this came out, and I didn't have to fuss too much with making those moving pieces work together with this card. But I do love the fact that all the berries come together right in the center and open up for Missing You. These guys look like they're a little too far apart, although maybe that is 6 feet in bird distance. So why is this on a pale pink card base? Well, I actually put this whole card together one time using this fiber cardstock. I thought it would be very interesting. The handmade paper in our kit made me think of it, but this fiber paper does not hold up at all. And within a few uses, it started falling apart and coming out of its holes in the back. It was just not sturdy enough. I didn't think about reinforcing it with more cardstock on the back. That was all glued down to my other cream card base. It was done. And when I ran it a couple of times, it started getting stuck, and I realized I had to like fix that. So that's what happened to my other cream card base. Ultimately, I'm much happier with this version of the card than the yellow version of the card. Okay, I was trying to stay away from the pink, but here, we embrace the pink here. I really like this. A Missing You card. That covers all of the sentiments in this stamp set, but I do have 2 more bird stamps to go. So I wanted to try coloring these birds as bluebirds. So I figured the easiest way to do that would be to try and do some no-line watercoloring. So on our raspberry pink card base, we have Just a Little Thanks with one of those bluebirds on that. I did stamp this using the Hero Arts Earth Palette Reactive Ink pad. I tried to keep the blues on the bird and tried to keep the greens on the leaves. It worked out very well, and this doesn't move once it's dry. It resisted the watercolors quite nicely. I used my Daniel Smith dot card to paint this. Came out really nice. I'm very pleased with that. I die cut this pattern paper with a Lawn Fawn stitched rectangle die. I did mount that on a thin black mat. I wrapped some of that pink glitter ribbon around the center of that and glued that down to our pink card base. I die cut our watercolor piece with a smaller Lawn Fawn stitched rectangle die, matted that on a black mat, and then mounted that to the card with some foam tape. Now this stamp here is also another old paper pumpkin stamp set. This is from January of 2017. This little Just a Little Thanks I thought was perfect. I was digging through my stash to find one of the smallest possible sentiments that I had, and I think this little thanks works very well. Just a little thanks with our pretty bluebird amongst the greenery, a few sequins from our sequin mix, and some of that glitter ribbon give us just enough sparkle to this card. Just a little thanks. Okay, one more bird stamp to go. This is on our last cream card base, and we've got Be like the bluebird who never is blue, for he knows from his upbringing what singing can do. Now, this is actually a song from Anything Goes by Cole Porter. Be like the bluebird who never is blue, for he knows from his upbringing what singing can do. One of the gangsters sings that in Anything Goes. I thought that went really well with this bird stamp. This little bluebird that has his mouth open is obviously singing away. I did my same no-line watercoloring with this stamp as I did on this. The exact same process, exact same materials, that Hero Arts Reactive Ink palette, the Daniel Smith watercolors. This one came out really nice. I'm really pleased with the watercolor on this card. I die cut the watercolor paper with a Lawn Fawn stitched rectangle die. I matted that on a piece of dark green for a mat. I cut the green pattern paper with a Lawn Fawn stitched rectangle die and added a dark green mat to that. I glued that down to my cream card base. I added another strip of that shimmer powder cardstock I made and added again those straight peel-offs on the top and bottom of that to go behind our artwork. I glued our artwork to this with some foam tape. I did print this sentiment on the front of this pattern paper using my Silhouette software, and this is in the Dream State Silhouette font. I'll have a link to that font on my website. I again just taped that pattern paper to this typing paper and sent it through my printer. I couldn't find any bluebird puns beyond, of course, the obvious, like may the bluebird of happiness poop on your Cheerios, or may the bluebird of happiness fly up your nose. But no, I thought this was really cute. Be like the bluebird who never is blue, for he knows from his upbringing what singing can do. So I thought you guys might forgive me for no puns this month if I at least gave you a little song. Love this card. I love that bluebird. Nothing on the inside. Oh, yes, I did. I did, of course, credit Cole Porter on the inside of this card, for those are his lyrics. Be like the bluebird. Now, I was pleased to get this add-on stamp set this month. This is the Angels Without Wings stamp set with all sorts of different healthcare workers on it, all sorts of marvelous sentiments on this. I was itching to color some of these. For our last card, we've got Not All Superheroes Wear Capes. I adore this. I love this little card. This is on the super smooth, alcohol-friendly white cardstock. So I stamped my images using VersaFine Onyx Black ink, and I cut a little mask for our center doctor there so I could overlap the ladies on the side of him just a little bit. It wasn't very detailed because they don't overlap a lot. But I stamped them all and colored those with my Spectrum Noir alcohol markers. They felt a little naked floating there in the middle of nowhere, so I sketched in a little hospital corridor and floor for them to be standing on. I thought that came out really nice. It looks like they're in a hospital. Those are those little wooden wall protectors that keep gurneys and hospital beds from slamming into the wall. I thought this came out really, really nice. I tried to get a little diversity going amongst our three healthcare workers here. Not all superheroes wear capes. I stamped that on a scrap of white cardstock, cut that into a banner, added that to the card front using some foam tape. Love this card. There are still stamp sets available, though this kit has been sold out. This stamp set is still available, and Lizzie is giving all of the proceeds from the sales of this stamp set to her local hospital. So I'll put a link for this stamp set in my description down below, and I will be taking this card to my local hospital as a little thank you to all the people putting their lives on the line for us. So those are my 10 cards using the Love From Lizi May 2020 card kit. A really kind of an eclectic group of cards here. Looks like we've got, a couple of Mother's Day cards, a couple of Hello, I Love You, Thinking of You cards, a couple of birthday cards, a couple of thank you cards, and of course, our great little hospital card down here. I did use a little bit of most everything in our set. I do have 8 pieces of cardstock left, unadulterated, and lots of little scraps. That means I used 10 pieces of pattern paper. I used one of the Decoupage sheets. I didn't get to that one. I used a couple of the die cut sentiments from that sheet. I used a few of the straight mint moonstone peel offs. I used all of the cardstock and a good piece of that beautiful handmade paper. I used most of the embellishments, but I did not get to those epoxy roses or those epoxy birds or even those little champagne pink ribbon roses. I think those are the only bits in our ephemera bag that I didn't get to. I used almost all of the dies. I used some of the ephemera pieces. I even used a little bit of the ribbon this month. And of course, that great Green Parade Nouveau Shimmer powder. I really had a great time putting these cards together, and they certainly cheered me up as we are in our 6th week of lockdown here in New York City. I hope these cheer you up a little bit as well. Like I said earlier, this kit has sold out. Most of Lizzie's kits sell out, many of them instantly. So if you'd like to join in on some of the Love From Lizi fun, I would highly suggest becoming a subscriber. There is a link in my description down below. If you do go shopping with Love From Lizi, please use my links. It is always greatly helpful. I am sending you and yours healthy and happy thoughts. All my love to all of you. Please take care of yourselves. Take care of each other. Please remember to like me, list me, pin me, post me, share me with all of your friends. Don't touch your face. Not yet. And as always, I wish you happy crafting. If you'd like more detailed information, better pictures, and product links, please visit my website at cardcutups.com.